While a good mystery can be intriguing and entertaining, it can also be frustrating when we are given no answers. Luckily for us, there have been plenty of mysteries that have been solved. Sometimes this takes years or even decades, but at some point or another, we were given reasons and answers as to why certain events happened. So that's what we're going to be having a look at today. So here are 5 creepy mysteries that were solved. Number 1. In 1997, the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, detected an ultra-low frequency that was tremendously loud, deep in a remote part of the South Pacific Ocean. Initially, it was speculated that the noise may have come from an animal, but the noise was so loud that it couldn't have come from a whale or any other documented mammal, meaning that if it did come from an animal, it would be the loudest and most likely the largest creature on Earth. Obviously, this is an exciting prospect, and it's one that theorists latched onto, claiming that this was proof that an animal several times larger than the blue whale was out there, a real-life sea monster that was over 250 feet in length. Although a creature this size was never actually found, the theory remained popular for over 15 years until 2012, when the NOAA gave a very plausible explanation for why this happened. The sound had shown extreme similarities to ice quakes, which are seismic events that can be caused by icebergs rapidly cracking and falling into the ocean. It explained why it happened in such a cold, remote location, and it also explained why nothing was found. This is a phenomenon that happens in areas just like this all the time, but most of these sounds go undetected, so when an event like this was actually recorded, it was difficult to explain. It's obviously a more boring, straightforward explanation, and for some, it may even be disappointing. However, it's better to have an actual answer instead of just constantly speculating. Number 2. On the 5th of December 1952, an incredibly thick layer of smog engulfed the city of London. It lasted 4 days and was considered to be the single worst air pollution event in the history of the United Kingdom and one of the worst in European history. It was estimated that up to 12,000 people died because of this, and over 100,000 people became ill. People had their theories as to why this happened, but no definitive answers were given. Research began almost immediately, and while some came forth with an explanation, they were either disproven or couldn't be confirmed. Researchers knew that emissions from burning coal had something to do with it, but that the exact chemical process couldn't be explained. That is until 2016, when atmospheric scientists from the United States concluded that the sulfur dioxide released from the burning of coal had converted into sulfuric acid, which caused the fog to be lethal. Scientist Renyi Zhang stated, "This process was facilitated by nitrogen dioxide, another co-product of coal burning, and occurred initially on natural fog. Another key aspect in the conversion of sulfur dioxide to sulfate, which subsequently inhibits this process. This strange and unique chemical process made the fog acidic. Finally, we were given a confirmed answer to a problem that had killed thousands, and over 60 years later, the mystery was solved. While the Great Smog of London may have been a deadly killer, it also resulted in some pretty significant changes. Mainly, the Clean Air Act of 1956 was created, which introduced significant measures to reduce air pollution." Number 3. In 1845, Sir John Franklin was commissioned to captain a large expedition in the Arctic. He had done this 3 times before and was successful and experienced in this field. This time he would be given 2 ships, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror. These ships would be well equipped and have a large crew of 129 men. It achieved national attention, and a lot of excitement surrounded the expedition because it was expected that a substantial amount was about to be discovered. Unfortunately, this did not happen. While the 2 ships were in the Canadian Arctic, the crew and the vessels were lost. It happened very suddenly, and no explanation was given. Almost immediately after this, a massive search began that lasted years. Franklin's fame, the reward, and the size of the ships were enticing enough for hundreds of hopeful explorers to join in these expeditions and search for the missing crew. Sadly, these expeditions weren't very successful, but around a decade later, an explorer known as John Ray was surveying an island near where the ship was lost, known as King William Island, and spoke to some of the people in the local community who said that they had a run-in with the lost crew. This gave some insight into where the crew was at the time of their demise, and around 5 years later, a note was found on that same island that shared details about the expedition. It stated that Franklin had died in 1847. The crew had spent 2 winters on that island, and many of them died because of this, and over 20 members of the crew died before the ships were even abandoned, which may have happened in April of 1847. Through combined research, reports, notes, and very simply time, a substantial amount of information was discovered about this lost expedition. They now had exact dates, records, notes, known the cause of death, and the frame of time that the crew died in, and they also knew the general area where these ships were. But throughout the entirety of the 20th century, both of these ships remained completely lost. Finally, in 2014, over 150 years after the ship's disappearance, the HMS Erebus was found, 36 feet deep at the bottom of the ocean, around 50 miles southwest of King William Island. It was a huge discovery, and it answered a lot of questions about a mystery that was once considered to be impossible to solve. We can only wait, but with all of the information that's been found, the discovery of the first ship, and the knowledge we now have about this once lost expedition, it can only be a matter of time until this mystery is completely solved. Number 4. In 1937, a German passenger airship known as the LZ-129 Hindenburg caught fire and was slowly destroyed in New Jersey. The airship had 97 people on board, 36 of which died due to the fire. It was the subject of intense media coverage because of how well documented the event was. Various different news teams were already at the site, waiting for the airship to land, and they managed to capture almost all of the event because of this. However, despite how well documented and discussed this event was, the actual reason for the fire occurring in the airship could not be determined. At first, some believed that this was sabotage, that maybe the airship was shot at and that's what caused the fire. Others believed that somebody on the actual vessel was the saboteur. Some even stated that it may have been struck by lightning, or that the engine failed and caught ablaze. These theories could not be confirmed. Experiments did nothing but debunk these claims, and for years, there was no definitive answer as to why this happened. But finally, after years, a widely accepted theory was put forth, and it actually had some pretty substantial evidence behind it. Using scale models, archived footage, and studying eyewitness reports, experts stated that an electrical storm had occurred, which charged the Hindenburg with static. That ignited a pre-existing gas leak which caused the fire. It might not be as exciting as sabotage or as easy as lightning, but it is the most plausible explanation and has been widely deemed the official reason for the Hindenburg disaster. Regardless, this disaster did have some significant cultural impact, as it was symbolic of the death of the airship era, which was already on its way out as it was being replaced with the much faster and arguably safer mode of transport, the airplane. Number 5. In the summer of 2017, a giant sea creature washed up on a beach in an Indonesian island, and after it was recorded and posted online, it went viral because of its intriguing nature, and it begged the question, what was this strange creature? Well, at first there was some conflicting reports. It was speculated that this might have been the corpse of a giant squid because the locals reported that it had tentacles, but this corpse was around 50 feet in size and didn't have any other similarities to a giant squid, so the answer was this was most likely a whale, a baleen whale to be exact. But this raised 3 big questions. The first question was, why did this corpse wash up on shore? Usually when a whale dies, it sinks to the bottom of the ocean and decomposes, but this specific whale made it all the way to a remote Indonesian island. The second question was, why did the locals report that the whale had tentacles? Obviously, whales don't have tentacles, so this cast doubt on the claim that it was a whale at all. And the third and final question was, why was this specific whale so big? It seemed to be wider and shaped differently than a normal baleen whale. Well, all of these questions were answered a week later, and unfortunately for the theorists, it was a whale that had been inflated with gas. Alexander Worth, a whale biologist from Virginia, detailed the possible reasons for this happening. If a ship swiped the animal, causing internal injuries that did not allow gases to escape, or if the whale had a bacterial infection that produced huge amounts of gases, the animal could inflate like a balloon, enough to float to shore. On the other hand, this ill-fated whale may simply have died in warm waters, which tends to fuel more bacterial growth. That too could rapidly produce enough gas after death to make the animal float rather than sink. Not only does this explain the floating rather than sinking, but this inflation would actually explain the difference in size and the strange appearance that this whale possesses. That amount of bacteria and gas would disfigure the whale and make it seem bigger than it actually is, and that disfigurement is most likely the reason that the locals believe this creature had tentacles. This process of inflation through gas and bacteria is actually quite common, but they usually deflate or even explode before they wash up on shore. It may not be some kind of undiscovered monster, but the process and reasoning is still interesting to have a look at. And that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. I'll be back next week with the first episode of a new web series. I can't wait to show you what I've been working on. Also, I want to say a big thank you. I announced the second channel last week and almost 1,000 of you have subscribed since. We are on 2,500 subscribers over there. So thank you very much. There will be a new video tomorrow on that channel, so make sure to go check it out. But like I said, that is pretty much it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next week.